All right, well, let's dive in. Health and nutrition webinar. We are going to tackle quite a few different topics today, and I'm going to give you guys the overview of this thing first. Part one is going to be today, and we're going to talk about the problem. We're going to talk about the solution. We're going to talk about macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fat, and we're going to talk about planning, prepping, and cooking. Then next week, I'm going to go into part two, which is avoiding toxins, reading food labels, and establishing a caloric burn. And then we'll put it all together with essentially how much to eat. Let's dive in first and talk about the problem. And this is a big problem that we're dealing with as a culture and a society. We are up against an enemy that wants complete control over our health and well being. And if you want evidence of that, just look around at our food supply. It has been completely weaponized against this. If you want proof, go to any big box chain store and you see candy, snacks at every checkout aisle. Go to any grocery store, you just see junk and junk in all the middle aisles. Go to Costco, people packing up their shopping carts with garbage food. So our food supply has been turned against us. Profits have definitely taken a front row seat against over health, I should say. We are poisoning ourselves and we are also poisoning our children with processed junk. The average American on a daily basis consumes 3,800 calories. The normal, the baseline, I actually agree with the FDA on this, is around 2,000 calories. That's plus or minus depending on your size, but that's a significant amount of calories. That's massive. So we need to put a dent in that average. 70% of Americans are overweight or obese. 75% are addicted to sugar. And then 133 million Americans suffer from at least one chronic disease. And a lot of people suffer from more than one chronic disease. Let's dive in a little bit more with the problem. The average American consumes 175 pounds of sugar a year. That's literally a wheelbarrow full of sugar being shoved down our throats on an annual basis. In the 1700s, it was about 1 pound per year. So we can kind of start to see where the problem lies in with our metabolic health, and that is coming down to the amount of sugar we are putting in our bodies. The eating junk has led to hormonal dysfunction again amongst men and women. With men, our testosterone levels are crashing between men and boys. And for girls, they are entering puberty earlier because of all the estrogens in our food supply. Overconsumption of junk has caused numerous premature deaths stemming from metabolic diseases such as heart attacks, stroke, cancer, and type 2 diabetes. Digging in a little bit further, Americans are incredibly lazy. We like to sit around, we like to be entertained on our phones, on the TV, whatever. We are incredibly lazy. We're a society of professional sitters. The average, or sorry, per day, we're getting 8 hours or more of sitting per day. We sit in our cars, we sit on the couch, we sit at a desk. And then, when given the choice of taking the stairs versus the escalator, only 2% of people will take the stairs. We also want to put a dent into that. We prioritize comfort above all else, and we avoid challenges. And lastly, our laziness and sedentary lifestyle is absolutely killing us. So you have the food problem, and then you have the sedentary inactive problem. Combine those two together, and we're looking at a very unhealthy population. Additionally, we live in a degenerative culture that's always chasing cheap dopamine hits from junk food, alcohol, pornography, drugs, smoking weed, vaping, playing video games, gambling, and doom scrolling on social media. So we have this built-in kind of we have this comfort society that we live in, and then we also have these built-in dopamine hits that we get constantly from all this outside stimuli, and it's really adding up to an unhealthy population that's also, and I'll talk about it here in a second, that's also declining from a mental health standpoint as well. So the system is designed to break you physically and mentally, and mental health is rapidly declining amongst adults, leading to skyrocketing rates of depression, anxiety, stress, and unfortunately, suicide, which men are now comprising of 80% of the suicide rates in America, which is a very alarming statistic right there. If we look to scripture and 1 Corinthians 6:19, we can really glean some information from this. Don't you realize that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God? You do not belong to yourself. The Holy Spirit is dwelling in us, and we are constantly poisoning ourselves with this junk food, donuts, junk food cereal, soda, candy, cake, cookies, French fries, you name it. This is just the standard American diet, and we are absolutely poisoning our bodies with this every single day. And these foods that we're eating, this garbage food, it packs a caloric punch. These aren't lightweight, uh, uncaloric dense food. These foods pack a caloric punch. And I'll give you an example here. A McDonald's value meal, the Big Mac, fries, and a soda contains 1,360 calories. And if you were to throw a chocolate shake in there, you're looking at well over 2,000 calories. That's more food almost than I eat on a daily basis. So just in one meal, people are getting well over half, if not more, of what they need on a daily basis. Now let's compare that to eating some meat, some eggs, and some fruit, which comes in at about 675 calories. So you can see the big difference. It's almost double of the healthy food compared to the junk food. And this is what we should be eating directionally on a daily basis to push back. So the solution, sorry, getting ahead of myself there. We are handing over dominion and authority of our health to big pharma and the medical industrial complex. Like I said earlier, profits have become priority in this country as opposed to our health. Now, the solution, very elegant solution, simple stuff that you can do on a daily basis. Resistance train, so lifting weights or machine weights, free weights, body weight, 10,000 steps per day, intermittent fast, eat protein, get sunlight, get sleep, grounding, and hydrate. Those are just simple things that you can do on a daily basis that'll move the needle towards optimal health and longevity. Yes, optimal health does require daily action, it requires discipline, and it definitely requires consistency. You can't just do it once a month. You got to be doing these little things every single day, but they're very easy. They're very practical. You can do them repeatedly. It's just little stuff moves the needle big time, and it comes down to discipline and actually doing it. But the reward is huge. Being healthy and not suffering from metabolic distress provides a tactical advantage against the enemy, an enemy that is hell-bent on destroying your health. Let's dive into the eating part of the solution, which is going to be the carnivore diet. And I use carnivore kind of loosely with animal-based. You can also overlap it with just a high protein, low carb, healthy fat diet. So there's a lot of permutations of this. I like to keep it simple, and I like to say carnivore. So we're going to stick with carnivore. But when I say that, just keep in mind there's a lot of different shades to the carnivore way of eating, or high protein, low carb, and I'll cover those towards the end here. Now let's dive in. The carnivore diet is a low carbohydrate plus low inflammatory approach to eating. And that's really key. We want to keep those two concepts in mind when we're eating on a daily basis. We're going to be focusing on quality protein and healthy fats. Now, the carnivore diet, you're pretty much going to look at this from the perspective of meat, eggs, and dairy. Good, healthy, quality proteins that have single ingredients in them that are basically go well with the way God designed us. Very basic foods. Now, you can add in fruit, honey, non-inflammatory vegetables and starches such as zucchini, carrots, and cucumbers, white rice, and sweet potatoes. However, if you are going to go more this route, which is considered animal-based, you want to ease your way towards that and reintroduce things once you get to your goal weight. So if you need to lose, let's say 100 pounds or 50 pounds, you shouldn't be eating many carbohydrates from fruit, honey, non-inflammatory veggies, and starches. So adding carbohydrates is considered, like I said, animal-based, and is closely monitoring carb intake is required when it comes to this strategy of eating. Now, let's dive a little bit deeper into the benefits of the carnivore diet. Weight loss, and you can experience rapid weight loss if you're staying disciplined and consistent with the meal plan. Insulin control, reduced inflammation, metabolic shift. So you're going to become fat adapted as opposed to using carbs for fuel. So using fat for fuel instead of stored glycogen, aka carbs. So that's a very important thing right there, is we're going to tap into a different metabolic pathway when we become fat adapted and focus on eating a carnivore diet. Decrease and elimination of joint pain. Me personally, this was a big one that I experienced. I used to get really bad elbow pain and shoulder pain and hip pain. When I switched to going full carnivore, all those pains started to go away. Little to no soreness from workouts. I recover extremely quickly when it comes to my workouts, and I push it really hard 6 to 7 days per week with resistance training and cardio. You're going to heal faster. Eliminate gut and stomach issues. This was another big one for me. I used to suffer from really bad stomach pain and I couldn't figure it out. And this was despite losing um, 70 pounds pretty much following the paleo diet. For those of you know, the paleo diet is really high in nuts, really high in corn, and really high in vegetables. So eliminating nuts and veggies and corn from my diet, my gut and stomach issues went away. So even though you might think you're eating healthy, you might still be expressing some metabolic and autoimmune dysfunctions based on putting in inflammatory vegetables, nuts, and seeds, etc. Elimination of skin problems. This was another one for me personally. I used to get really bad rashes right under my eyes here, and it was all because I was consuming a lot of nuts. And once I cut those out, all my skin issues went away. Continuing on the benefits, don't get sick very often. Personal story, sickness ripped through my house twice over the winter months. I've got 3 kids and I didn't get sick. And that I attribute to being on the carnivore diet, to fasting, to exercising, to resistance training, to getting plenty of sleep. So not getting sick is a huge benefit. Imagine how much more productive you would become if you didn't get sick every time something came through the office or your kids got sick. Improved cognition, improved energy levels, improved digestion, improved testosterone levels and hormone levels, increased libido and sex drive. And the carnivore diet is even more potent when you combine that with intermittent fasting. So if you are doing anywhere at minimum 14 hours up to 16, 18, I personally do 18 to 20 hours per day, you're going to see tremendous results. Your resting insulin levels are going to drop, your resting glucose levels are going to drop. Your body is going to shift from being focused on food to being focused on cellular repair and cleaning out the old cells that are in your body. So combining the carnivore diet, low inflammatory, low carb, with intermittent fasting is super, super potent. Let's talk about animal versus plant defense mechanism. So a lot of people will push back and they'll say, well, plants are good for you and vegetables are good for you. And that can't, there is a little weight to that, but when you kind of see this bigger picture, it makes sense. And I'll break it down for you. So animals have claws, hooves, horns, antlers. They can also run away or they can attack. That is their natural defense mechanism. There's an inherent risk in hunting down an animal. Luckily, we live in a agricultural society where farmers are doing the raising and the slaughtering for us, so we don't have to risk our lives hunting big game anymore. But that's a consideration point. Animals have defense mechanisms built in, and that is horns, antlers, etc., and they can run away. Now, plants, on the other hand, are fixed to the ground. Their defense mechanisms will be that of a poisonous or toxic nature. So if you consume something over and over and over again, you might not feel it right away, but if you eat broccoli, asparagus, Brussels sprouts every single day, your gut is going to let you know. If you eat nuts every single day, your gut and your body is going to let you know. It might manifest in joint pain, skin issues, stomach issues, rashes, might be a lot of different things, but you will see some of those poisonous and toxic things from plants. Now, fruit, on the other hand, fruit wants to be eaten. Fruit has seeds that can be consumed and essentially pooped out in natural fertilizer or spit out and dropped on the ground. So fruit tastes sweet, therefore it wants to be eaten. So that's the way you kind of want to look at this big picture stuff when it comes to animal protein versus eating plants out of the ground that are going to be toxic versus including fruit in there that wants to be eaten. Now, the goal of the carnivore diet, as I said, is to reduce inflammation by eliminating plants and leaves, legumes, nuts, seeds, grains, and toxins such as sugar, soy, seed oils, and chemicals. All right. So think of the carnivore diet as really a pure diet that's going to reduce systematic inflammation in your body. Additionally, all of the plants and everything can cause the inflammatory response or an autoimmune response due to their high levels. This is the why behind this of oxalates, lectins, phytic acid, sulfonates, gluten, glyphosate, folic acid. And I'm going to talk more about toxins in part number 2 next week, but this is the main takeaway when it comes to eating vegetables. Now, the big takeaway, chronic inflammation over time can lead to metabolic dysfunction and an early death. So if you're eating this garbage every single day and the toxins from sugar and gluten and all that, it's definitely going to add up and it's going to cause an inflammatory and autoimmune response. So let's dive into talking about protein, meat, eggs, and dairy. This is the good stuff right here. So when we're doing a carnivore or animal-based or high protein, low carb, whatever umbrella and category we want to consider it, we want to focus on consuming beef, chicken, pork, fish, wild game, bone broth, eggs, cheese, milk, that'd be raw or A2, and then jerky. And this isn't the end all be all list here, but this is animal-based proteins that we really want to focus on consuming and structure our whole diet around. Organs would also be under that umbrella as well, and you can do desiccated or dried organs. That works really well, and that's where you're going to get a ton of nutrients too. And then we want to strive for about 1 gram to 1.2 grams of protein per body weight. There's a spectrum on this, and people will argue back and forth, but 1 gram per pound of protein usually works pretty good. And then what to eat besides meat, eggs, and dairy. So as I alluded to earlier, we want to focus on consuming low inflammatory carbohydrates. So these would be carbs coming from fruits such as berries, blueberries, strawberry, raspberries, apples, dates, bananas, oranges, mangoes. Again, this isn't an end all be all list here. This is just an example. You can get that from sweet potatoes, squash, cucumbers, zucchini, carrots, white rice, honey. These are all non-inflammatory, non-toxic carbohydrates right here. I meant to put pickles in here as well. That's another good one. Again, if you have a lot of weight to lose, you're going to want to minimize eating these things right here. If you are at a good, healthy weight and you want to focus in more on performance, then you can start to add carbohydrates in a couple days per week. As far as healthy fats are concerned, we want to focus on avocados and avocado oil, olives and olive oil, coconut oil, tallow and ghee, grass-fed butter. Those are all really good things to cook with and to garnish your meals with. And then lastly, I want to talk about reducing carbohydrate intake. So this is kind of putting it all together. So you have the low inflammatory part of things, and then you have the reduction of carbohydrate part of things. So by default, the carnivore diet is low carb. The baseline, which I call the standard American diet, which probably 90% of Americans are on, is going to be high calories and high carbohydrates. This is what I said earlier. It's about 3,800 calories per day. And then the carb intake is about 300 to 400 grams of carbs per day. And this is mostly coming from just industrial slop that people are cramming down their throats. This is what the majority of people eat on a daily basis. And this is why we have an obesity and health epidemic in our country right now. So if we implement clean and healthy eating and clean eating, we're going to automatically reduce our carbohydrate intake by half. So if we cut out all the processed junk, the pizza, the bread, the pasta, the tacos, the nachos, the donuts, all that candy, cookies, cake, all that junk, if we cut that out, we're going to get our carbohydrate intake pretty darn low. So that's falling between 150 and 200 grams per day. That's going to be animal based. So mixing good proteins with the non-inflammatory vegetables, like I said earlier, fruit, sweet potatoes, white rice, and honey, you're going to drastically reduce your carbohydrate intake and be on your way to weight loss. You also eliminate such toxins as nuts, beans, corns, grains, leaves, etc. You're going to be feeling good. You're going to start to lose weight. Now, to take that to another level, then we'll go into more of a low carb approach. So this is anywhere from 50 to 100 grams of carbohydrates per day. Again, animal based, so meat, eggs, dairy, plus very little non-inflammatory veggies such as fruit, white rice, sweet potatoes on honey. This is where you're going to have to start measuring things and really making sure that you're falling into this range of 50 to 125. And then we have ultra low carb. This is also known as keto. This is where rapid weight loss can really happen. And this is going to be, again, animal based. So meat, eggs, and dairy, zero fruit, veggies, honey, and sweet potato. Essentially, you're going to be getting your carbohydrate intake from, if you're doing dairy, you're going to get that from dairy. So the only carbs you will eat will come from dairy. And the range on this is pretty low. It's about 10 grams to 30 grams of carbs per day. Would I start somebody on this right away if they were eating the standard American diet? Absolutely not. I would recommend more of the healthy approach where you're at 150 to 200 grams of carbohydrates per day. Prove to yourself that you can do that, get acclimated, and then start to inch your way down more towards the low carb range, ultra low carb range. There's a lot of ways to skin this cat. There's no right or wrong answer, but there is a right or wrong approach when it comes to dietary intake. And we want to avoid the toxins, the junk, the standard American diet, essentially. And lastly, this is the lastly one right here. Planning, prepping, and cooking your meals. This is such an important part of the whole journey and the process that it does get overlooked. You should be preparing and cooking all of your meals at home. When you let a restaurant or fast food joint do the cooking for you, they'll load the food up with processed carbs, unhealthy fats, and sugar so it tastes amazing and you come back as a repeat customer. Like I said on one of those earlier slides, McDonald's 1,360 calories versus meat, eggs, and some fruits, 675 calories. So you can see the difference right there just in what happens when you let a company or corporation do the cooking for you. The meals, like I said, are going to be calorically dense, and then eating out will definitely lead to weight gain. I know people that's all they do is they just eat out every single day. And guess what? Once a month isn't going to hurt you, but once a day definitely will. And it's going to be it's going to be impactful on your overall health and longevity. Now, the best strategy is to plan your meals in advance, shop for your food on Saturday, and meal prep on Sunday. I'm lucky that I work from home and I can cook my meals as I go through the day. But if you are on the road or you have to go into the office, you need to have a game plan. You can't just wake up Monday morning, zero food in the fridge, and expect to wing it. That's how you're going to set yourself up for failure. You need to plan, you need to prep, and you need to get those meals cooked. If you are going to wing it on Monday, you're going to probably make some bad food decisions and go towards that fast food restaurant style of fare type of eating. And that's what we want to avoid because it's calorically dense and we're not going to be able to monitor what's going into our body as closely. And then just to keep it as simple as possible, cook 99% of the meals you eat. If you are going to eat out, make it maybe once a month or once every other month. That's about where I'm at when it comes to eating out. I very, very rarely eat out. And this will ensure that you have control over what's going into your body from a caloric and macronutrient standpoint. All right, to recap things here, I'm going to go into some just basic concepts that kind of encompass everything. Now, keep it simple. Everyone overcomplicates this. It's as simple as you can get, and that's the beauty of the carnivore style of eating, animal-based, low carb, whatever category you want to call it. It's simplistic. We're going to focus on beef, eggs, butter, salmon, chicken, bison, berries, bananas, honey, cheese, jerky, avocados. Really basic. I can't simplify it any more than this graphic right here. And then we want to avoid the junk, the standard American diet right here. Pizza, bread, pasta, donuts, soda, cake, cookies, chips, candy bars, French fries, basically all fast food. We want to avoid this altogether. I sent out an email pretty recently that outlined everyday foods, which would be this right here, versus once a month foods, which would be something off this list right here. So that's a distinct difference right there. Unfortunately, this is the majority of people's everyday foods right here. I've posted this graphic before, both in my coaching group and online, just real simple lists of foods to eat on the left here, and then foods to avoid on the right. You have your proteins, your fats, and your healthy carbohydrates, your non-inflammatory carbs, and then you have all the toxic junk that's forced down our throats by the corporations for profit, such as sugar, pizza, chips, soda, wheat, corn, soy, genetically modified foods, taco, pasta, pizza bread, etc. So that is the big difference right there of how we want to directionally eat. Now, I said this earlier in the presentation, and I'm going to come back around and circle back to this point. There's many different shades to the carnivore diet. Now, I would even add one more over here, which would kind of be the paleo diet, but this is all kind of under the umbrella of high protein, low carbohydrate, healthy fat. So let's say on the far left, we have paleo diet over here. Then we have more of a keto approach. So this isn't considered carnivore per se, but you are eating protein, you're eating some vegetables, dairy, animal fat, some plant oils, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices. So it's kind of it's low carb, but it's not quite low inflammatory. And that's what we want to get to, is more of a non-inflammatory approach. Then we have animal-based and classic carnivore. These two right here are the ones I jump back and forth between. So there'll be maybe a couple days a week where I'm adding in some fruit and some honey. I don't do coffee and tea. And then there's other days where I'm just keeping it to animal meats, organs, eggs, and dairy. All right. So I jump back and forth basically between these two: low carbohydrate, low inflammatory foods. And that's really setting, if you do that, you're going to set yourself up for optimal health and longevity, feeling great, all those benefits I went over. And then right here on the right, this is what's known as strict carnivore. This is also called the lion diet, hence the lion up here on the graphic. And this is basically meat, salt, and water. This was popularized by Jordan Peterson. He was one of a lot of people have done this, but he was one of the more well-known. You could call him a celebrity or influencers that popularized this diet, because he had just really bad autoimmune function. So he just went to red meat, salt, and water, and all his issues, all his ailments cleared up. So this would be more of a pure elimination diet, really trying to fix a lot of metabolic distress going on in your body. So this is the spectrum of eating low carb, high protein, healthy fat, animal based, carnivore, strict carnivore, lion, paleo, keto. It's all kind of underneath the same umbrella, but the key takeaway is carbohydrate intake and low inflammatory foods. So if you can get that concept down, you're going to be going in the right direction. And then lastly, I wanted to give you guys kind of a day in the life of what I eat. So my go-to breakfast is usually an egg white omelet, which I have right here. I know it kind of looks like a burrito, but it's not, with a little bit of sausage and a little bit of cheese in there. And if I'm doing a carb day, I'll add in some berries, a banana, maybe some strawberries, but I'll pretty much do this egg white omelet and some avocado. That's pretty much my everyday break fast. And this is coming off an 18 to 20 hour fast. And then my lunches of recently, I would say the past 2 months, maybe even 2.5 months, have been really basic. I'm focusing on some high quality lunch meat, maybe a little bit of salami thrown in there if my kids don't eat all of it, some cheese, some pork rinds, and some pickles. This is sexy breath right here. Your significant other will definitely want to give you a kiss after you eat all this here. I'm being sarcastic, but this is really basic. It's actually very cheap to eat like this too, and it's going to be low carbohydrate, healthy protein, and you're going to be full and satiated after eating that. Then for dinner, real basic: steak, throw it on the grill, cook it up, cut it up, throw some eggs in there, throw a little fruit in there if you want to do some carbohydrates that day. Like I said, this is about 675 calories. This is a lot of food for me. So if you're a smaller individual, or you're calorically, you're not eating as much as I would calorically, then you could obviously reduce this. But really basic, basic stuff. And then I also like to go with some burgers. That's been kind of my go-to recently. So just some burgers on the grill with some cheese melted on top, maybe some raw cheese off to the side, some avocado on there. You can throw some eggs on there. And then this is just a different variation. I made up a low calorie, low carbohydrate sauce right there. Don't worry, I didn't eat the lettuce. I just had that there as a garnish to make the picture look pretty. But I kept it really basic, just burger and cheese. And that's a real simple way to get the proteins you need, get the healthy fats you need, and reduce the carbohydrate intake right there. And then for dessert, if you are craving something sweet, this is one of my go-tos as well. So this is just some Greek yogurt with a little bit of honey drizzled on top, a little bit of cut up dates. You got to be careful with dates because they are very calorically dense. They can add up quickly. And then some goat cheese. This is an absolutely delicious dessert. Hits a lot of different flavor profiles. But keep in mind, I'm weighing out every single thing in this bowl so I don't get carried away and wind up going over in a surplus on my calories. And then a basic dessert, chop up some blueberries. Oh, where'd that go? There we go. Chop up some blueberries, chop up some strawberries, maybe some bananas. I got some dates over here. You drizzle a little bit of honey on there. Keep in mind you're weighing this food out on a scale so you don't overeat. Delicious dessert. Kills that sweet tooth right off the bat, and it's healthy for you. So that's basically a day in the life of what I eat on a daily basis. Um, Real basic foods, you guys. I don't overcomplicate it. I know kind of what's going into my body every single day. I have it all weighed and measured and in my spreadsheet so I can track and log it very simplistically. And it's my go-to. And I feel phenomenal. My energy levels are through the roof. I don't drink any caffeine. I I heal and recover from workouts quickly. I sleep great. So all this stuff on a daily basis, all these little things add up over the long haul. And then, like I said, we'll tackle part two next week, which is going to focus in on toxins, reading labels, and establishing a caloric burn.